I used to do these every so often with this other group, this other little political group I made, and so I'm kind of used to these, but I haven't done one in a long time. And but anyway, I wanted to. So you already have a cool poster for your Substack, which I want you to plug. Well, like what? It's like 5 people right now, but I love that. That's already so nice.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I've got. I mean, one of the kind of design secrets. Here, give me a second here. One of the design secrets that I've got going is I make canvas prints of things I use that it's so cheap now. You can just go to someplace like easycanvasprints.com and get a kind of huge piece of art made up that you like. I mean, why fill your house with posters that other people choose for you? If there's something that you like, then just go up and have it made. And these guys actually don't care very much about copyright and things like that. And I mean, it's not like you're selling it, so it doesn't really matter. And you just send them whatever, and they'll just print it up, and they'll do a good job usually. And so what I end up doing is I end up tweaking artwork that I like, either with size or sometimes with color correction, things like that, to make them all look decent together. So this one was just the logo that I just made up last week. It was like $40.
Now that's what I was just about to ask you. Because the sensibilities of that is what I'm interested in, because like that's a good sensibility. But I guess I should expect that from you. I'm not kissing your ass, but you obviously
thank you. It's I mean, I wanted to do this for a while and I had no idea what to do. So it actually started off as a I love old films. Black and white films, and I found somebody had a generator for like old film. They had a couple of them. They had for old film opening stills, and where it has the name of the film and the actor and the blah 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 blah. So I kind of saw that, and I really liked the way the shadows work and the kind of three-dimensional effect of that. So I just grabbed that.
Yeah. Not to be too artistic about this, but there is a juxtaposition there with the word nonsense and how heavy that font is, and the red and the black and the white. I mean, that's a heavy poster, but it says Late Republic nonsense. I love that. That's
thank you. I mean, initially I was thinking to put behind it. I was thinking to put some like Fall of Rome imagery or some shit like that. Mm-hmm. But then I thought no, because I want it to be. It's just gonna mess it up. It's gonna be too, for branding reasons, you want simplicity, and because you want it to be able to, look good across different types of things. So, for example, I did a podcast one, and I've got a new podcast one with a little line drawing of a telephone, and then I've got another one that's coming out with a line drawing of a turntable.
Okay.
And but like the next thing I do actually is not even going to be a Late Republic nonsense branded thing. It's I've been encouraged to make videos about records that I love, because I go on YouTube and I'm looking for like a lot of the stuff that I listen to, and nobody is making videos about these records. Nobody. And like you go and you're like Beatles or Bob Dylan or whatever, like you can go look up fucking Alan Holdsworth, the fusion guitarist, and there are like 150 million videos about Alan Holdsworth. But like,
is this what you posted on Twitter today about him? Was that him or was somebody else?
Well, the other day I did an Alan Holdsworth concert that I found. It's just like what is this? How could there be so much? And then you go to, I mean, one of the things that is really weird about Brazil is that it's a fucking continent-sized country.
Yeah.
That has so many people in it, and yet there's so little that we know here I mean, there's so little in English. from that, you know, musical tradition, and just even more than musical tradition, really their artistic scene in America is like totally.
There is none. It doesn't. Yeah. I don't know any.
Right, exactly. Like occasionally, you used to be able.
That's why I voted for it today. In your poll, I voted for. Brazil. I knew what I was supposed to like or vote for. Like it was the vintage or what? No, the avant-garde, the avant-garde jazz. Well,
I'm going to do all of it. Like. I'm gonna do all of it, and I'm gonna do it at my old YouTube site, which is just basically a thing that I created years ago for odds and ends. And it ended up turning into like this kind of jazz and Brazilian music bootleg place where I just threw stuff up that I would find online and whatever that wasn't available. And, you know, videos or audio or whatever, or just albums that are out of print or something like that. And I figure I'm going to do it there because it's like I've already built a bit of an audience there for that stuff. And I don't want, you know, I don't want to confuse the brands in the sense, like I don't want to, have a bunch of people who are expecting the music get a bunch of political stuff. And I understand if I would be on the receiving end, I would be kind of pissed. I'd be like, I didn't sign up for this.
If you have a nice size audience, that would definitely be a weird sort of thing. That's interesting. I didn't know you had that actually, or maybe I did and I forgot. But
yeah, I mean, I don't. You know, I occasionally I'll tweet something that I posted up there. I mean, I've got 4 million views on a video.
Oh wow. Really?
On a Brazilian, you know, TV, you know, live concert thing from 1972. Now,
Brazil's interesting because it doesn't feel like it feels like it's very much not in the consciousness of. I don't know about the West, but at least not in the U.S. It doesn't feel like we're very. I mean, we are because if something, you know, right wing happens, the left will throw a stink, but it's mostly unconsequential. Like China, things are big, you know, obviously Russia, even though it shouldn't be, of consequence, it is. And, Europe, we hear about it all the time because they're, our closest cousins.
Right.
But, Brazil is sort of an anomaly. I mean, would you consider, and this is going off into a tangent, but would you consider Brazil right wing or
you know what? I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's certainly, I'm certainly no expert on the political environment there. I mean, I'm really not. When I first heard, I have a friend who was telling me about Bolsonaro running, and I was laughing. I mean, this is before he was, it's before he got stabbed and all this stuff. Like he was like gonna run, and it's like, oh my God, he's gonna be the most based guy, who's the world leader and blah 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 blah. And I was like, really? This country that just went through decades and decades of socialists.
Oh, right.
Okay, maybe, sure, why not? But I didn't really think about it much. And then of course he wins, which was a big shock. And sort of in retrospect, I guess it shouldn't shock because it's still, I mean, Brazil is still a very Catholic country. Huh. And it's a very religious country. I mean, you see.
That's what it has going in its favor, in a way.
And it's inescapable. And it's interesting too, because the religiosity doesn't necessarily translate into right-wing politics all the time. It does sometimes, but not all the time. For example, though, they feel very comfortable with it, which is really fascinating. So, Carlinhos Brown, who is, one of the kind of great pop stars in Brazil, is, legend. He was like a month ago, maybe 2 months ago, he puts up and I mean, he's a leftist. He puts up a video to his YouTube channel of a new song that's basically a hymn to a saint recorded in a church. And it's this beautiful thing. And it's like, it's nothing. The lyrics of Brazilian pop songs are full of God.
Yeah. And, well, I don't know this, but it doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, and it's just like you see music videos, and you're just like, would never fly here.
Yeah,
like there's like a respect and a reverence and like a kind of
they have the
feeling
Cristo.
Of home.
They have the Cristo. I mean, then that's like a big symbol, and we don't have anything like that really. I mean, do we?
No, I mean, shit. They'd have torn it down.
Yeah,
I mean, could you imagine
that thing would come crumbling down?
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine someone someone says, hey, you know what, I think we should get rid of that, and take it down and let's just get rid of it. I mean, the guy would probably be lynched. I mean, it's just crazy. It's so beyond the imagination. And it's something that they're all cool with. I mean, the people in the favelas seem to be very, very religious.
If there's anything about the last several years that I've learned, is that things aren't as in any of the boxes that we had them in forever. Like, I mean, in the American, psyche, like right wing, religious, libertarian, that's over here.
Yeah.
And then everything else is on the other side. And it's really not that simple. I mean, especially if you look around the rest of the world, you can have, like we just discussed, you could have religious socialists and whatnot. And then, pure libertarianism is proven to be, well, at least, in my opinion, it's just like a fairy tale.
Nothing.
And so it's like,
nothing,
nothing, right? Anyway, the point is, things are just so much more complicated. And I tell people this every once in a while, that I don't know anything anymore. And I mean that. I feel like I just don't know anymore about anything. And I'm just sort of, I've become sort of not passive, but like actively passive. That doesn't make any sense. But I'm watching.
I get what you mean.
I'm watching things come at me, and I have good filters because I've been paying attention for a decade. Most people in my peer group, they're not like me. They've all had kids and done normal things, and I just obsess about politics. So I have all like the filters, and everything's all aligned, and I can pinpoint what's going on. But it's I've gotten to that, and there's a very cheesy line in the Red Hot Chili Pepper song Snow. It's the more I see, the less I know, the more I like to let it go. It's like, yes, it's exactly right. Like, I have to let things go, otherwise I'll just lose my mind. Anyway, tangent.
But you're absolutely right. I mean, what you're describing, I think, is like the end of the post-Cold War consensus. And and it's something that we have to go through. I mean, the big fight on the right, is like what I always say, which is the people who know what time it is and the people who don't know what time it is. And what does that mean? I mean, what that really means is sort of the people who don't know what time it is are clinging to that old post-Cold War consensus. As if everything is still, as if everything is still the same, as if their fundamental principles don't take account of, sort of what has happened. I mean, we learned many of the wrong lessons from the end of the Cold War. Both the left and the right did. And now we're sort of sorting that out. And I mean, one of the great things about Trump was Trump forced the issue. The issue was gonna happen at some point in time anyway, and really when we talk about the cocks at some of our our least favorite websites and things like that, we found
you can say the Dispatch, it's fine.
Yeah, I mean we found that, like, I mean, these guys will do anything to not admit that we're in a changed world, and it's just hysterical. And they rage at us because we see it.
It seems recently they've kind of come out of the closet as being people who have had their minds changed. David French wrote an article recently about race. I don't want to get too into it, but he wrote an article about race that basically was the big takeaway from that article was, my mind's been changed over the last couple of years. That was the big takeaway. It wasn't really,
surprise. Well, and
the whole time in the last few years, all he said is, "We've changed. You changed. The Trump people has changed.
Right.
Everybody's changed." That article was saying, "My mind's changed." And it's like, you bastard. We knew that. Like, you didn't.
Right.
You just refused to say. This whole time.
Yeah.
Okay, your mind's changed. Welcome to the left. It's like,
right, exactly. Yeah, I mean, my friend just was just actually found that article today, and he got so angry he wrote a response that is going to be published shortly. But he was so angry, specifically about a part that that I kind of glided through when I read it, because he can't really. I just skimmed David French. But he was talking about. I mean, he ends up talking about the blood guilt of Americans, of whites in America, and the debt that white Americans still owe for not the legacy of slavery, or maybe the legacy of Jim Crow. And it's like, I'm sorry, we don't do that here. We have already tried. We've had wars on poverty. We've had affirmative action. We've had all kinds of things to try to that were well intentioned, that tried to kind of address this issue from a structural point of view.
He's abandoned. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and it seems to not help. And in fact, race relations in this country get worse and worse. And David French basically in that article, he just signed on to the blood guilt thing, and that's not a thing. I mean, that's not a concept of justice that is at all conservative. It's not a concept of justice that has anything in common with, let's say, the right, or people that he had allied with for the last
or himself
30 careers, or himself 2 years ago. He would have said it was crazy. But because it's against but because it's against white people, he's okay with it. And it was really disgusting. And look, I mean, the guy's kind of definitionally a cuck, right? It's shame is part of the kink. It's self-flagellation. Every Sunday. I mean, joking. I'm not a Christian. Like everybody knows I'm not a Christian. So like I try not to get involved with his every Sunday, shitting on American Christians in a column. I mean, I think it's distasteful and horrible, but it's like, I feel like I can't address the specific points that he makes because I'm not in that community and he's not addressing this to me. But, I get pissed off for my Christian friends. And it looks terribly repulsive to me.
But as if there wasn't enough Christian bashing. I mean, that's been the modus operandi for how many years?
And it's so easy and it's so cheap. And it's like every critique he makes is like the fucking leftist critique. And
that's the strangest part is, and I actually heard, it was really actually very interesting. I think you would have really liked this. I was in a Clubhouse back when Clubhouse was like, the 5-minute flash.
Right.
It was cool. And there was a Clubhouse named David French, based or cringe, right? And Gerdusky is in there basically facilitating this discussion that is just so heated. And he joins in, and I'm like,
David French joins in?
But that was the most amazing part about it. He sat there, he was in there, and to his credit, he was in there for an hour or so, maybe more, fielding questions. But here's the point: his go-to to everybody's issues or things that they were worried about was, you're worried for nothing. Things are not as bad. It was just the same sort of like, what you're talking about, what you're seeing and saying, it just isn't as bad as you think it is. And it only would ever seem that way if you've shifted. And that's what bothers me the most, is that he just hasn't come out and said or admitted, my mind's changed to the left. And okay, if it's changed to the left, okay, that we can now properly categorize you. But you're also at one side of your mouth, I'm repeating myself now, but you're at one side of your mouth, you're claiming to hold the mantle of what conservatism is, and on the other, you're saying my mind's changed on conservatism, to the point where he's throwing out Thomas Sowell, who I would argue is probably the soul of so much of conservatism when it comes to economics, race.
He was throwing out Sowell?
No. What I mean is he's tossing. The ideas of Sowell.
Yeah. I mean, look, the guy's a weak little bitch, and
which brings us to the Gaintrust.
Yeah. Well, look. I mean, he's my friend sees him at the gym sometimes, and it's just like,
Oh, He needs Gaintrust. The first time Gaintrust is popping up in the
right. No, I don't think he would be welcome. Or maybe he's got a special rate. Maybe you can give him a special like
cut rate. Yeah, if he
cut
wants to be embarrassed, I'll make him pay $250.
Oh shit, that's a good idea.
Yeah,
that's a good idea. You just tell him he's fucking worthless.
Terrible, David. I can't record this now.
Okay.
No, I'm kidding. No, but yeah, no, I mean, and just I guess really quickly, I just want to talk to the audience, I guess. So Gaintrust, I'm sure you've seen me annoyingly promoting it on Twitter all the time. It's a program for people who don't want to have to constantly come up with their own workouts. I mean, we have a team of people, myself and Tribe Ryan. We came up with this idea, David. Actually, maybe you might find this interesting. Is that we wanted to challenge each other, because the idea is that we were getting tired of our own workouts. So we were like, okay, you do my workouts, I do your workouts. And what we found was there's like magic in that. And we have great, we get these really great results. And the whole idea is to challenge each other. People started joining in and following those things, getting results. And we were like, let's turn this into something. And now we have close to 50 people following the program. And it's inexpensive. I mean, people tell me all the time, jack your prices up, and jack your price. It's worth more than it is. And I'm like, listen, I think this is the interesting rate, $25. I'm not promoting, but I think this is an interesting part of the program. It's $25 a month, and it's and you get a community supporting you. We use Discord, and so you and I have been talking both politics and fitness for probably years now. I don't know, but it feels like, I think it's been years now.
Yeah,
and
probably.
So it feels only appropriate that you'd be the first one on this, these podcasts.
Well,
which
thank you.
Yeah. And so far it's been very, very interesting. And I don't want to, bad segue, but I want to talk about Simone Biles because this is a topic that has the right, once again, completely divided. And I think, again, arbitrarily so, and people are just talking past one another. What's your overall take on the whole Simone Biles thing?
Well, I mean, my overall take is, as I've said on Twitter, and I have to say, I mean, this is where it starts to get embarrassing. And I saw a bunch of pieces at National Review that I agreed with on this, that were actually really sensible, and they were a lot sensible than the sort of knee-jerk kind of, let's say stereotypically macho takes that I saw too, which is that, like, I mean, on one hand, look, I don't give a shit. I don't follow any of this. But really, I don't care. I mean, I don't care about, sports media and, whatever, them building her up and all this stuff. I didn't follow it. I just, the GOAT stuff, I like, it just went, it was just something that I wasn't, kind of aware of or interested in. And then I just saw people bashing her in really kind of strange political ways that seemed to have no connection with anything that she did. So, like, drawing huge political lessons that are like meta political, lessons, just to be on their kind of hobby horse about the shit that they talk about every day. And they're just kind of like using her as a prop in transmitting a message that they're transmitting every day anyway. Right. And like, I mean, I saw, Charlie Kirk do this and some other folks, and I was just like, look, have some respect for, number one, is for like someone who has obviously done the work and is a badass fucking athlete. Number one, that's you've got to have respect for that level of achievement. And also, look, you've got to have humility. I mean, somebody who is at the top of their game, who says, you know what, I can't do this, when it's like the biggest event of their lives, of their careers, there's something going on there that is not apparent. She didn't it doesn't advantage her to jump out of this and just to, and just to sort of blow it off. And and all I was saying was that, like, go into this with some humility. I mean, these are fucking people. She's not a political actor. She did nothing to you. And I of course I saw, like, there's some racial stuff there too, which I thought was disgusting. Really on both sides, like either blowing her up or knocking her down just based on the fact that she's like a young black girl. Yeah. Who gives a shit? She's great. And the other thing is, like, they were making a lot of folks were making all kinds of statements that didn't seem credible to me. Like, if she wigs out and she feels she's got, she has she goes out there and she performs terribly, like legitimately terribly, which she did, and she lost her bearings. It's just like, the better part of valor may be to say, you know what, I'm not going to fuck around with this. I'm going to let somebody else who's on the team who is not going through this take my place, because you know what, if I go through it with this knowing that I am, not at my best, only because, I'm the GOAT, then, that's like, that's shitty too. Mm-hmm. So, but in general, I just kind of get the feeling that, I mean, it's like when you see it with other things. I mean, I was thinking, immediately when this came to mind, I was thinking of Bob Dylan. And how Bob Dylan has been throughout his career, like starting in, 1967 and happening many times all throughout, like on a recurring basis throughout his career, he's been running from his lunatic fans and their expectations. And, he went in 67, he went as far as to, I think, fake a car accident where he got to disappear from the public eye. Yeah. For 2 years, while he was, hanging out in Woodstock, recording with the band, and doing something completely different and throwing his fans for a loop because they were crazy and they had these expectations of him. And if we sort of normies, have no idea what that feels like. We have no idea what it feels like to be in the Beatles in the 1960s. Yeah. We have no idea what it feels like to be in this place where you've got, you've got all these expectations built up by the media, by fans, by this, by that, blah, 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 things that seem to be out of control. And it's very easy for any of us who are not in that position to say, oh, well, yeah, I mean, you just tune it out. Or you do things that, you want to do. You shouldn't be guided by responsibilities to your fan base or to the media or whatever. But like, I have enough humility to say I've never been in that chair, and it's a wild fucking chair. And, like, I'm not going to be judgmental about, I mean, this isn't a simple, morality play. This isn't like, oh, whatever, guy meets girl, guy, whatever, lies about having a girlfriend and blah, blah, blah. Like, it's not like that. This is like on another level completely. And there are all kinds of things at play. So all I was really arguing was let's just like slow down. Let's not make big, grand, political, philosophical, social pronouncements about this. And let's just like, let the girl be.
Well, that voice was needed, I think, in this instance. I think, and that's how I personally approach things. Like, I don't necessarily always come things from like, what is the correct thing to say? I'm not, very, the Ben Shapiro sort of thing where it's like, this is the correct pronouncements for this, blah, 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 blah. Like, I'm not like that. I look for what voice is not being said that probably needs a bit of voice, and it might not even be the take that I think is always the smartest of choice. It's just the most appropriate for that. Right. That, I think what you were putting forward was something that wasn't being said enough, especially in that moment. I mean, that was, you had the polarization of both, the crazies on the right, the crazies on the left, and then the next day, after all like the battling has happened, like all I see are the people. Then the only thing I see after that are the people saying, and this is well after I saw what you wrote, but people were saying things like, on the right, like all of your takes are awful on the right, and you guys are all blah, blah, blah. And the only thing that I would add to, now that dust is settled, the only thing that I would add is like, it's such a shame that we've been so used to being gaslit. Like 5 minutes after she made the tumble, she was a mental health hero of our age, and wow, just
all that is totally unnecessary and bullshit.
All of that, but all of that tease Matt Walsh is up. Those guys are. They see that.
Yeah.
And that's what that's just that's what you need to walk. If you're a person who's focused on your mental health, speaking of mental health, you have to once in a while back off from that kind of stuff and let yourself.
I mean, this guy Walsh has made a career of doing this. I mean, he was doing this he was doing this. He's kind of the OG at this. I mean, I agree. I would agree with him a good part of the time, but his whole career is based on sort of making split-second moral judgments about situations like this, and being, frankly, being like as unempathetic as possible. And that I just don't like. I mean, even if I may agree with him, sometimes or disagree with him, I don't like the lack of empathy. And I mean, not to sound like a lib, but it's like, is the world really crying out for your opinion on this subject? Really? Is this a subject that easily plays into some sort of, some sort of left versus right morality play? Sometimes sit down and shut the fuck up and think about what else is going on.
Well, I was just about to say, I don't know if you're going here with this, but I was just about to say that I watched his podcast today, or at least the part that talked about Simone. And what I came away with it was thinking, well, this is much more measured. I understand this better. In fact, this is much more digestible than what I heard yesterday on Twitter. And this is where, Twitter is Twitter. It's the lesson that we always, it's like, just breathe, breathe before you tweet, or you know what I mean? Right. Like the timing was bad. And because I listened to him today and his points were really, they were interesting points, but only interesting if you're like sitting down with a coffee and you're in the mood to think that way. But in the heat of the moment, it was just pardon me, people who disagree with me, it felt un-American. It felt a little bit un-American to just go in like that. I think at the very least in this situation, just don't say anything if what you want to say is something critical of her, while we're still waiting to find out what's going on with her mental health. But I agree with you. And it kind of brings everything into this interesting conversation to be had. And it was that the AJ Cortez guy. I'm not Cortez. Alexander. This is a good segue into this because he said something interesting today. And this, what we're talking about with Simone and being a little bit more empathetic and sounding like a lib on the right and conservatives and bodybuilders and all that. He made a point today that basically said that, there's no creativity on the right. And he was specifically talking about the bodybuilding right-wing community. And he probably has a very, close eye on that since he's a big Twitter, he's really big on Twitter, especially in that space. And there's a lack of round edges, I think, that he's speaking to. And that includes this idea of having a bit of class, having a bit of empathy, even if, you saw that tweet and it made me, my initial reaction was, yeah, well, what about leftists? And then I just sat with it and I thought about what he said and how basically we are too dogmatic. We're too doom and gloom, and it's sucking us of our ability to be a creative force and come up with creative solutions and sort of make the future more shape the future, because you have to be creative to shape the future. And I think he makes a great point. I just was curious what your thoughts were on this. And
yeah, I mean, I think he had a thread, and I wasn't down with. I didn't agree necessarily with all the points that he made, but I think that one was perceptive. I mean, he ended up, just for kind of context, he ended up liking and retweeting my tweets on Simone Biles.
Mm-hmm. There you go. Talk about the segue. He's literally, maybe it inspired him.
Yeah. Right. No. I mean, it's possible, and because I think there is a segment of the, and I'm not saying like, whatever, the right wing bodybuilder space, but like, let's say there's a segment of like the right wing, man space, let's say, which includes
the
like
machismo of,
yeah. And I mean like the personal finance stuff, and it overlaps with like some of the trad stuff and like the, this and that. And it's just like, literally it is a zone devoid of empathy. And it is a zone devoid of creativity, because when you are constantly, it is by nature, if you're a trad person, right? And I have, if you're a trad person, what are you doing? Essentially, you are putting limits. You're circumscribing, what you find to be acceptable behavior. You are fetishizing that boundary. You could be doing it for a really good reason, i.e., you're like, well, of course, we all need boundaries to, with which to, sort of put together what is important in our lives and what's virtuous in our lives. And yeah, of course, on that basic level, it's right. But I think at a certain point, and this is where my kind of Gen X shit comes in, at a certain point, you get too obsessed with this stuff. And I think a lot of people do. And and it's like, I start to see, and it's actually kind of gotten more and more on my nerves as I go on, which is like, I see so many like aphoristic tweets from people who are like half my fucking age about
define aphoristic.
Like kind of really judgy. I wish I could come up with an example off the top of my head now, but it's just like, if I don't want
stifled in structure, maybe like a.
I don't want but just like here are life lessons. I'm 25.
Wait,
and
sorry,
like you're a fucking loser if you don't
want me.
What?
You don't want me to start on the whole I'm 25 and watch me do this amazing physical feat. It's like, yeah, you're 25. It's like, watch me, balance on this balance beam. You're 25. You should be able to balance on the balance beam.
Right.
Anyway,
right.
The DMs are interesting during the day when I see these people talk about, here's David. Here's the one that drives me the most crazy. You should be able to eat ice cream every night before bed. I do. And your lifestyle should be able to account for eating ice cream before bed. The dude was 22 years old. And this guy is a fitness guru. And I'm like, of course. I'm like,
try that when you're 40.
Yeah. It's like, who are you talking to? Like,
right.
You're anyway. But yeah, that stuff drives me crazy.
Yeah. But I mean, not in the fitness space. Like you get people talking about money. And like, whatever, like, I made $40,000 today sitting on my ass, or like last night while I was sleeping, what'd you do? And like this kind of like, it's kind of like, it's this weird kind of performative, stuff where like, if
are you saying that stifles people's, are you saying that has a stifling effect on the people that read it?
No, I think that there's a certain amount of performative stuff that is valuable, but it just seems excessive. It just seems try hard to me. And in particular, there's a whole bunch of other folks who are, who are kind of moralistic and, moralistic on some of the social issues, like not the social issues, but like, the marriage and the male, female, gender roles kind of thing, that it's like, okay, I mean, I get it. Yeah. I'm with you to a great extent. But like, you guys are beating this horse to death. And the obsession with the old, like for example, like the whole thing with Lindy, right? I forgot what the name of Paul something. We got featured in the New York Times for like doing things that are old because they are old, just by virtue of like, okay, this is virtuous because it's old. It's like, well, I don't know. Maybe it could be. I don't think it's necessarily virtuous because it's old. I think it could be cool that it's old. And I think it has a certain aesthetic value, or sometimes it makes sense in and of itself. But like, fuck, man, imagine spending so much of your mental space and energy, because it's not infinite, it's finite, on figuring out where that box is. And what goes in the box, what goes out of the box, what goes in the box, what goes out of the box. You see this with lunatics who have like legitimately crazy and sad people, I think, who have political objections to certain art. Where they will say, they have political objections that sort of become aesthetic objections. Like,
I know exactly. I've experienced this in small ways, and I've noticed it as it's happened, and thought to myself how unhealthy that was. I'll admit that that's happened to me, actually.
Yeah. I mean,
I've noticed it though. I mean, I was able to be like, well, you're going too far, but I did notice it happening.
Right, and it's just like, and it's like the fetishization. Like, you see the same people who are trad people who are talking about like, okay, the height of architecture is like medieval era. And and we're going to sit and we're going to listen to music from the Baroque period and the classical period.
I know these people, yeah.
Because it's better. I'm like, dude, you literally, like, you're obviously not, a musician.
Now, I mean this.
Yeah.
I mean this clinically, but it's a bit autistic, and I don't mean that like, I don't mean that to be like, oh, you're autistic. That's a truly autistic mindset of well, I don't know this. I'm not a clinician, but that's what I've noticed in sort of people who have, maybe mild to severe autism. They have these opinions on things like this, but I don't want to get too into that. But you know what I mean, though.
Yeah, no, yeah, of course. So, like, I mean, that's when I read Alexander's tweet, that's what I thought of. I mean, maybe that's not what he's getting at, and we're going to do a podcast on it where we can kind of flesh it out. But that's what I responded to in it. I responded to a lot of folks that, like, frankly, I think are kind of they're in love with the LARP, and when you're LARPing, you're inherently not. I mean, you're not creative. But I also understand, and we kind of messaged about this after the fact. But like, I do understand, and this is where like the Nietzschean aspect comes in. I mean, this is where it's like, okay, I'm a fucking snob, but I do recognize that most people are, are not values creating individuals, and most people are just not capable of that. Most people are like, okay, I mean, here's my script. I kind of like this thing. I'm going to be a goth. I'm going to be a trad. I'm going to be an LGBTQ trans something with purple hair. This is a thing that I see. It's a pattern, and I'm going to adopt this pattern. I've never been like that kind of person. And, like, I want to make the fucking pattern myself, and if other people, what I want other people to, to the extent that people care or whatever, I would want someone to create their own pattern as opposed to like steal my fucking pattern.
Yeah. And just on that, and I want to move to, because I don't want to keep you here forever. So
I'm just hanging. I had a coffee, so I'm all,
you talked me into an espresso, and I had one that was really good. We bought a new espresso. I think it's a Nespresso. It's one of these new ones with the dome. It's more of a dome shape instead of like the curved. It's good. I know it's not like, like whatever,
no, those can make a decent cup of coffee.
Yeah, it is good. So I want to let everybody know who's watching. If you have any questions, post your questions up, and we'll get to them. We'll answer them. If you even want to If you're part of Gaintrust and you want to come on and ask a question via video, get in touch with Tribe Ryan, and he'll get you set up. And also, what I wanted to say was, so I'm a creative person. So I my whole life I've been the kid in school who was the artist, and he drew. He's like, I was always a guy who drew. And what I knew early on, and to this day, and this is something that's been talked about a lot, but you should learn. You have to learn the structures of what came before you can really get creative. And people have talked about this, and you can't grab your amazing Martin guitar and you can't grab it without having learned. And you want to play like some great guitarist, you're gonna have to learn the structural foundations and the limits, the things that box you in, before you can break outside of those boxes and have it mean anything. And what I'm seeing, and this is maybe not exactly what we're talking about, but the left, they're saying there is no box. Creativity for creativity's sake is all there is. And then there's meaninglessness creativity all over the place. Meaningless creativity, meaning I have 1,000 genders. I am aromantic, asexual, aromatic, whatever the fuck it is. And it means nothing. It's very creative, but it means nothing. And I think that, that you need a society, or at least, you have to have a community or a culture or a family that inculcates in you structure. And this is why I think we're very mediocre of a country in our art output, not so much in movies and TV, which I think is great. Music is a whole nother animal because it's worldwide and you can find endless amounts of it. But in what you see in the popular sort of, in what you see, I don't want to call it pop culture, but the stuff that you see most often, I think is probably not as good as it could be, because we have a right wing, which is supposed to, and this is very abstract. So obviously I'm oversimplifying, but you need a right wing mindset that can keep the society feeling like there are structures to work within, and then you can get creative inside of it. Well, the right's completely limp dick. The right is unable to put their side of the bargain up. And the left is completely wild with unfettered creativity. And so and here's the point. The left is forced right now to play the role of both the right and the left. And they have both of those going on their own side. And the right has both of those going on the same side as well. I'd say to a way less degree, obviously, because they don't have any institutions, they don't have any of the motivations, that the right, the left does. The point is, the biggest point of all is that this AJ Cortez thing, the Simone Biles thing, with the right not having the empathy, we are going to have to start playing both sides of this on the right if we're going, and this is just me soapboxing, but on the right, you're going to have both energies. You're going to have both a left-wing creativity that's unfettered and yada, 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 and you're going to have both the structure, because the left is not having, they don't want us. Right. And again, I could be oversimplifying. Maybe you can work across the boundaries.
Yeah. I mean,
you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, no. I mean, I see what you're saying.
But yeah.
Right. No. I get it. I think, like, the point you make about the right not having the institutions, I think that's right. But, it's also true, and it's a sad fact, but it's true. Like, I don't think we deserve the institutions.
Oh, no.
We don't, we don't deserve them because, number one is we didn't build them. And number two is, like, we have to go through a period of real, we have to go through a kind of taste-making period, if that makes sense, where we acclimate ourselves really to the history of art, to concepts of aesthetics, to sort of reacquaint ourselves with beauty. I mean, it was not always unknown to the right, strictly speaking.
Yeah. Oh no.
In general.
Well, but it wasn't ever. Was it always ever called the left and right though? I mean, back then, I think we had the luxury. Not back then. I'm talking about all through history. You had the luxury of having people with complex, multi-layered personalities. That I mean, I don't know for a fact, but that's. I'm wondering.
Yeah.
That.
I mean, look.
Wondering.
I mean, Beethoven was a monarchist. I mean, it doesn't fit. I mean, he was very supportive of Napoleon. I think also though that when we look back on this stuff, it's very, very hard to put some of this old stuff into the left-right box.
Yeah, because by that definition, Da Vinci would be LGBT.
Yeah. I mean, like none of this makes, none of this makes sense. Read through a kind of, early 21st century lens. But the bigger picture is that we just don't know what's good, and it seems like the right is kind of forever in this weird, warped world. And when I say the right, I don't mean the trad right. I mean like the mainstream right. I mean, I was just looking at these fucking awful ads that I forget which company is making for these candidates where they're walking. The company that it's like
that's what I was hoping.
They're always walking, and I just saw this one ad, and it was like this Texas guy who's Big Tim or Big John or Big whatever the fuck, and this ad was so cheesy. And it was talking down to people, and it's like, dude, like this is embarrassing. It's embarrassing for you to make this ad, but it's like it's embarrassing that this is what you think these people want. And is there a certain segment of those people that want that? Yeah, I mean, sure, people have no class, but like
I don't know, David, I don't know if you've ever had this thought, but there were times where I looked at MSNBC's the overlay, I guess you'd call it, and their sets, and I would say to myself, why can't we have this? I say the same thing. I say the same thing. Why? It's because it's flat. It's because it's flat, and it's like, I'm sorry, fucking flat looks good. They have, you look at Fox and it's just like eagles and fire, blah, 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 blah. It's just like, dude, this is a 3D floating Fox blue, very blue, like navy blue. It's like
navy blue, always the same color blue, and it's like one of the things that I like about about like the Tucker's show. His new show is he's like when he's doing his like Fox TV internet show or whatever, and he's talking having long conversations. He's doing it in like a wood cabin, and it's like I don't like that look.
Oh, you don't like that?
I don't like that look personally, but you know what? At least it's not the fucking screaming eagles.
That's what I was gonna say. And even like the I don't like that either. It's like you could come up with something great for Tucker. Is an interesting guy.
Yeah. Did you read the interview he did with my buddy Max Raskin?
No, not
where he's talking about the Grateful Dead and all this stuff. And I mean, he's a huge deadhead.
Yeah.
And
he's a deadhead. So is Ann Coulter, I hear.
She is. And you listen to and he's like listening to like tuba and throat singing and stuff like that. I mean, he's not like he is he's aesthetically much hipper than most. But the right sort of creates this thing where they fetishize this utter cheese, and it's like, I don't know. I mean, part of it has to do with the fact that people don't really think about it, or they think that anything that doesn't look cheesy and crappy and like Guns, America, Bacon, whatever is like some fairy shit.
Now, it's part of no, sorry, go ahead.
And it's like dude, it's really not. There's no fucking like there's no shame in in a particular aesthetic sensibility that's not that. There's plenty of stuff that looks good. I mean,
get some New York. What's the what is that? What is the art school in New York? What is it? New York? What? Is it just NYU? It's NYU. Get some NYU. I mean, maybe they wouldn't do it because it's Fox News, but just grab a desperate NYU kid. I bet you they can come up with something awesome.
Oh no! Look, I mean, a bunch of people can come up with something awesome. It's just for example, I mean, I don't think this has been announced publicly, but like I'm doing a series of books for the Claremont Institute, and including.
Can I say something real quick? I love the aesthetic of that. It's in a magazine. I'm not sure. Is it a magazine or is it a newspaper? The Claremont
Review of Books. Yeah.
Yes. I love
really?
that.
That's awesome.
Well, I love what is it? It's a typography, right? Like that typography. Woo. I mean, that's trad, but I mean, I think it's good trad.
Well, that's unchanged since the beginking. I mean, that's just one of those things that. And they did a good a good job the last couple of years with Beck and Stone, devising the websites for the American Mind and going back and sort of redoing their web image, which is good. But what they wanted from me, and we're in discussions for doing a series of books with with a kind of, let's say, mid-century masculine but not cheesy look to it, which is kind of like vintage Americana, but vintage modern Americana, and that's a look. It's an alternate look, and I mean, there's so much out there that is old vintage and Penguin book covers from those days. I mean, I've got my hard drive full of mood board and inspirational stuff, that I use a lot when I do my design work. That is all really interesting and not. It's all it should all fall in the kind of trad space. I mean, look at this, right? Playboy magazine and a lot of the men's magazines in the 50s and the early 60s had an amazing aesthetic sensibility. They really did. And where, and where did it go?
It reminds me of it reminds me of one of your, actually, it reminds me of the decor of your house right now, if I'm being honest. But I've seen some pictures of your old apartments on Twitter, and correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know very much about this, but that aesthetic it's very Playboy. Am I wrong? Like,
yeah, I mean,
obviously.
I mean, it's like it's mid-century, but it's also my Cubist thing with it in the artwork is going on, and I've got some more abstraction, and I wanted to do a lot of brass trimmings alongside walnut and the kind of different different kind of warmer textures without it being ridiculoly earth tones, and I didn't want to go too far, and I didn't want to go to atomic Atomic Ranch retro vibe. I wanted it to look kind of ageless with a vintage feel, as opposed to some kind of recreation of something.
Is that a real term, Atomic Ranch?
Yeah.
Really, that's interesting. But I'm a big fan of your taste. I
thank you, appreciate it.
Before. Yeah, across the board, musically, aesthetically, even clothing, stuff like that. I do look to you for a lot of these things.
Did you get some hoodies?
Oh wait, for what? Just in general, or?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm selling these hoodies. I'm in love with these hoodies. I've got 20.
Oh, you're talking about that you have. Oh, I'll get them for sure. I didn't know you had them.
I mean, I don't sell them. I probably should, but I don't like. I mean, that's the thing. I would sell merch, but I just don't like to wear anything with anything on it.
That brings me to something I wanted to say earlier. Is that we talked about how the right is very wedded to the Eagles and the American, the overly cheesy patriotism. I am locked into the Abe thing. It's just it's a it's a
what age thing?
Every group or something, every project I do that has some political tinge to it.
Oh, like the top hat, like Abe
the
Lincoln.
Top hat, yeah, the Abe Lincoln thing.
Okay.
I'm a little bit stuck with it. I do like I love what logo. I think it looks really awesome.
That logo is awesome. Yeah.
But a part of me is like, Abe Lincoln's not cool right now. It's like,
right.
Abe
Lincoln's with the Lincoln Project or whatever. Yeah.
Well, there's that. Yeah. But anyway, and I just want to really quickly, I'm going to just read a couple of comments and ask everybody any questions you guys have, send them in and we'll do them. Dai Shin goes a little late to the stream, but that whole Simone Biles backlash was a lot. Glad to be here and listening. Good to have you, Dai Shins. One Fine Jay, who's actually a mod in Gaintrust, who's got the biggest calves I've ever seen, and the second biggest quads in Gaintrust to moi. He goes, the gray area between order and chaos where creativity happens. The right now cannot tolerate chaos. This is where I appreciate Jordan Peterson. I know he's kind of a little played out in a lot of people's minds. I still really appreciate.
No, man, he's still a genius. He's still one of the most important people alive.
I went to see him actually in 2017. I paid big bucks to see him, and that was, I will never.
Where'd you see him?
I saw him. It wasn't Philly, but it was near Philly, and it was. I caught those. As soon as I saw that he was doing a tour, I jumped on the internet that night. It was like 4 a.m, and I threw like $600 at 2 tickets because I didn't want to go alone. Well, 2 tickets because I did the VIP afterwards.
Okay.
Questions.
And yeah. Right.
So I did all that. I was second row. He looked at me during at this time in my life, I was all kinds of, mentally just really not at my best. I was struggling with school. So I was, whatever. And so he looks at me, in the audience, and I am like, I look away because he's so important to me.
And
yeah. You know how he says, right. He talks about how he will look at somebody in the audience. He looked at me in the audience and was talking to me. And I was just like, this is so intense. I couldn't handle it. Wow. So, but anyway, it was very cool.
Wow. I saw him in 2018.
Oh, really?
In DC, yeah.
How was that? Oh, did he have I had the brown suit. Did you get the brown suit?
I don't remember.
You would have remembered the brown suit. So
I probably would have remembered. Yeah. I went with my buddy. I bought 2 tickets too, and I was just like, who am I gonna get? Who's gonna appreciate this? And a buddy of mine, we both kind of loved it, and yeah.
I picked the perfect friend to go with too. I mean, he was a recent convert to my view of things, and he loved it. It was really fun.
It pushed him over the edge.
Oh well, yeah, and now I talk to him. He might even be watching. Now I talk to him, and he's like, "They stole the election." Like,
it's awesome.
Based. Yeah, exactly. Based. So let's see. Roger Scruton documentary, Why Beauty Matters. I have always been meaning to watch that. I remember when I couldn't believe when he died actually, but yeah, he was a good dude. And I love that idea of conservatism. Even the environmentalist conservatism is interesting. I just wish they weren't such pushovers in a way.
Yeah. I don't know. I like Scruton. I just think that he's another guy who's kind of like maybe in love with his particular, darlings, and his he's got a period of art that speaks to him, and nothing else beyond a certain point in time or whatever is whatever it's decadent and garbage and not like he's when I read him, I think of the kind of the Rolling Stones and Mick Jagger chapter of Bloom's Closing of the American Mind, which I always thought was, Straussian misdirection. But apparently he did take it seriously. It's a kind of embarrassing chapter about rock music and the primitivizing effect of the rhythmic thing happening in like the Rolling Stones, which he which he kind of abhorred, preferring Haydn and Mozart.
And who was that exactly?
That was Alan Bloom in Closing the American Mind. His genius book. And
what's your take on that? You didn't like that?
Oh, no. I mean, that chapter was just like, this is ridiculous. This is like, reading some
this
obvious,
is smelling his own farts.
Basically. Yeah. Obviously some fuddy-duddy, but the rest of the book is life-changing and brilliant. And it's still worth reading. It's still like the #1 book that changed my life. Completely.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And, so, I mean, I bought a ton of copies. I used to just give them away like candy. But I would read, I mean, if you want a book on art in the West, I would read, I mean, it's a huge book, but Jacques Barzun wrote, at age, 95, ended up writing From Dawn to Decadance, just like, 500 years of Western cultural life, where he just talks about, he does a real meta study of art and culture throughout, for the last 500 years, and it's pretty unbelievable. It's unbelievable, and it's worth getting. It's also written in a really beautiful and interesting way, with footnotes that allow you to jump around to different parts. Okay. He created his own kind of annotation / footnote system, and it's very much worth reading. It sounds like
it sounds like it was like a project of love for him. If that that's really those are always the best. Those are always the best reads, is when you read something like that.
Yeah, and I kind of I like books that, I mean, I like books that are organized in interesting ways, because I mean, another one is Cortázar's Hopscotch, which is could be read in any number of different orders that subtly changes the nature and emphases of the characterization in the book, but it's just something that you don't think about very much, because usually you write a book from beginning to end, and you don't think about alternate ways of getting that information. And if you do it right, it's a tremendously interesting thing. You're working with the same material, but putting it in a different order gets you a different result. And that's a kind of, wild and interesting thing for me, I think.
Very interesting. And thank you, Chaz, for putting the book in the chat. I'll definitely be checking that out. Let's see what else we have here. We have, they explained British conservative philosopher on how beauty should be central to our civilization, how it's a central human need. Understood. Appreciate the shout out, Michael. Anytime, Jay. Beast at the squat rack. Bucks 2010 says, what are your thoughts on opinions not being allowed to be voiced without facing backlash from both sides, especially with the current debate on vaccines and so forth?
Like censorship, or
I'm assuming he's speaking about the freezing or the chilling effect, of both sides coming at you. And I think my immediate reaction to that is, if it's coming from the right, there are no consequences. So just get a spine.
Yeah.
From the left, just be careful how you go. In my opinion, and go about careful how you express your opinions. You can still get your opinion out. Don't step on a landmine.
Right.
I
would agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I would agree with that. I mean, look at, like, for example, what ended up kind of pissing me off about the right's reaction to, or largely the right's reaction to Black Rifle Coffee, which I thought was a total overreaction, based on what the word of the, characterization of the New York Times was just kind of ridiculous. And it was another illustration that the right, the right can only destroy its own. The right has no power. And the only power that it does have is destroying its own. So, for example, you see the ferocity with which a lot of people attacked Black Rifle. It was only to make up for, frankly, a feeling of impotence, and an inability to do the same thing to the left.
Yeah. Yeah. I would that level of that. Yeah. Well, I mean, it seemed like it was an attempt to cancel them, and
Right.
two things happened. One, I don't know if you saw this, but one was that it seemed like the guy was taken out of context, big surprise by the New York Times, big surprise. And number two is, I think if they would have defected totally and have doubled down on their convictions, they would have done just fine. They would have, maybe even done better. Maybe they would have been featured in the New York Times, month after month, and suddenly their coffee, if it's good, I mean, is, now it's like the coffee of the defenders of the Capitol, It's like
right. Yeah. Look, I mean, I don't think they should have done the New York Times. I don't think they should have participated in the New York Times profile, number one. But number two is, let's say they did. Let's say they were taken out of context, and let's say, it created a massive amount of trouble for them. Okay, that's when you throw the New York Times under the bus in a savage way. You throw them, you fucking come out with a new cup of coffee, like the New York Times, New York, whatever, the Times or cocksuckers, whatever.
Yeah.
Like you go really hard against the New York Times because that's sort of part of the game. And the New York Times understands that as part of the game if they want to retain their credibility with their audience. Unfortunately, they didn't. They came out, they said, yeah, we were, taken out of context, blah, blah, blah. What are you going to do? It's the New York Times. But in fact, they just threw it in the lap of the editor. And it was a little too late. It was, look, I mean, they fucked up. The people who are overreacting fucked up. And it was just a kind of sad thing to see, because here's a company that, say what you will, you don't want to destroy. This is one of the few companies that you even have that even, is upset that that will answer, that will course correct in your direction. What you think you're gonna get somewhere with Starbucks? You think you're gonna get somewhere with chock full of nuts or whatever, owned by some massive conglomerate, out of Luxembourg or whatever? No, Black Rifle Coffee. The left would have dealt with this in a completely different way. The left would have had 2 hours of a little bit of grumbling on the internet, and then silence. And during that silence, they would have gone to them and said, okay, guys, here's how you fix it. You fix it by putting together a nonprofit fund. And then you pour whatever. How much did you make last year? I don't know, $200 million? Okay. You take $20 million and you give it to, or $10 million and you give it to this nonprofit, and your problem will go away. That's how the left deals with it. And they say, okay, sounds good.
And there might be, I don't know this, but there might be benefits in down the road for giving that 20 million to whoever that was. Probably not.
Right. Well, no. But they would put it into something. They would put it into something, effective or crucial.
Well, what are the chances that, okay, let's say they chose Black Lives Matter, right? I think that there was even speculation that they were doing that or something like that. Black Lives Matter coffee, whatever. Extra dark roast.
No. The New York Times said that, and they laughed, and they were like, "Are you kidding?"
But let's say, just as for a thought experiment's sake, that they gave 20 million to, let's say, Black Lives Matter, and then Black Lives Matter says, I don't know, down the line or maybe at the same day, like, okay, what about making a Black Lives Matter roast or whatever. As a business person, like strictly business person, that you might want to consider doing that. You might want to, and then the pressure builds, and that's how you corrupt institutions, because there's a lot of money to be made with the branding of Black Lives Matter. But this is a thought experiment. But
yeah, I mean, you mean if Black Rifle Coffee was actually a leftist company?
Well, if it was a leftist company, yeah, but like if they were just talking bottom line, and like. They're talking bottom line, what they can get from this, let's say they're traumatized. Well, yeah, they're traumatized from.
Well, yeah, but they're not going to, I mean, they're going to, they're not going to do anything that would antagonize the base now. And not only that, like, I mean, these guys aren't libs. I'm sorry.
I don't think they would be, but
Yeah.
I think you're right, especially after seeing the conversation after the New York Times piece. It was very clear that they aren't libs, like you were just saying. They made that clear. That was very clear after
right. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, we need to be more understanding of some of the companies that are in our space. It's like
few.
Yeah, I mean the few. I mean, for God's sake, the few that we, and I keep saying this, the few that we actually have some power over. The few that care about our our buying power and our the fact that we're customers.
Right.
I mean the whole thing with Rittenhouse wearing the T-shirt and all this stuff. Like had I run that company, I would have been pissed. I would have been furious. Because at the end of the day, if it's my company, I get to make branding decisions,
right,
on hot button issues. I did not launch like the Kyle Rittenhouse, campaign. I mean, would I have done it? I would have, maybe I would have done it, but like the idea of having that campaign launched on me out of my hands is just a non-starter.
Right, and that's so unfair about the whole thing, about some person's wearing your shirt and suddenly you're responsible for that. That whole thing only works if you're on the right. It's you have to work within the unfair circumstances of being a right-wing company, and that's just the unfortunate reality. Part of my ambitions is to make right-wing, bodybuilding gyms, apparel. There are right-wing, right? Like I'm wearing it right now. Like, this is a kind of a right-wing, apparel thing, so that's sort of the idea with promoting fitness and maybe putting out some shirts or whatever and seeing where things go with what we're doing here with Gaintrust and it was born out of the same conversation of the Black Rifle Coffee, which is we have so few things on this side. It's how can we be creative and add to it, even if it ends up being a blip. At least we're trying. We have to. The right has to do what they can with what they've got. And so
what's going to end up happening is that, I mean, this is the purple patch, I think, period. This is the period where you can go and start something and it's going to be, it can be, or it's probably going to be relatively modest, but more of these things companies are going to enter into the market, specifically tailored to our people. As things get worse, as these companies get more and more comfortable with alienating half of their customer base, they're just, they're going to keep going. They can't. There's no scenario in my mind. There's no scenario in which they press rewind and go back to a time where they say, well, Republicans and Democrats both buy Nike sneakers, so we're going to be apolitical. Once they've become pregnant. They've seen that at the end of the day, there are very few consequences for this stuff. Mm-hmm. If depending on what the product is, that people are still going to buy it no matter what, on one hand. And on the other hand, is you have more and more people who are graduating, who are kids, who are moving up the ranks, millennials as they go through, middle management and C-suite types of positions, who are just going to be woke. And they don't see our legitimacy as people. And, if they don't see our legitimacy as people, they're sure as shit not going to see our legitimacy as customers.
Very true. Very true. Well, does anybody have any more questions for Dave? Dave, your Substack.
Late Republic Nonsense.
Late Republic Nonsense. That poster in the background is his Substack, and they've got a lot of interesting stuff. And some of my favorite, and I don't mean that, I'm not kissing your ass. I was listening to a conversation you had with somebody who was an insider at the Trump White House. It was a
yeah,
girlfriend of yours. Not a
yeah,
girlfriend, but a friend
Amanda Milius. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was one of the more interesting insider looks into DC politics, especially on the right and during the Trump era.
And we couldn't even talk about the good stuff.
Yeah, I as I was listening, I was frustrated by that fact. But yeah,
that's when we met, when she was inside and I was outside, and I was trying to help her from the outside, and it was just a total shit show.
Yeah.
Every day it was like, it was not good, because I mean, you go, you want to, and she told some of the stories, you want to go and sort of implement the agenda that you came to Washington, D.C. to implement, the agenda that, the American people voted for. And you just see how the administrative state is in control. And, one of the main critique of modern, of the modern American system of government that is pushed by the Claremont Institute, John Marini in particular, has been that the growth of the administrative state has fundamentally changed the character of the regime. And we're no longer the regime of the founding, because we have this layer of administrative state that has taken away the responsibilities, for example, of, both of the president and also of Congress. That's one reason why you've got, members of Congress basically being social media influencers today, which is that their job isn't to write and pass laws and legislation anymore, like it used to be. All that stuff is taken care of within the administrative state. And and by now it's so it's impenetrable for and it's unlikely to really ever be reformed.
I was going to actually ask you to, and by the way, thank you for posting, for plugging his Substack. I was going to actually ask you as a final parting. Well, first of all, let me really quickly comment that what was interesting about how you're saying how that the administrative state controls what's going on. That conversation with Amanda, is Amanda, right?
Mm-hmm.
What was interesting about that was it's not control in the way that you would think of control, like people pulling levers. Well, not literally, but people, sort of making sit. It was more like there's a psychological layer inside of everybody's psyche that they don't even have to sort of be, secretly on team this or secretly on team that. It was just sort of a social layer that did the controlling, which was the most interesting part about that.
Yeah, I mean, this is the person to read on that topic is Angela Codevilla, who kind of presaged Trump and this whole era in his book in 2010, The Ruling Class, which is adapted from an article he did at the American Spectator. The Ruling Class. You're not gonna go in and find a bunch of like red shirts, or like secret red shirts. That's what. No, again, it's ridiculous. Yeah, exactly. I mean, the thing is, it is a cultural thing, which is why a lot of people don't understand it. A lot of folks think of things in conspiracy theory terms, and they think, it's a bunch of people that the swamp consists of a bunch of people that whatever's have they all get together for meals and they go to all the cocktail parties and blah, blah, blah. And like, there is some of that, but it's not necessarily a plot in the sense that it's an organized thing. It's just everybody is the same type of person. We all agree,
it's decadent social America.
Yeah.
It's a very, I think it's a social, it's a very social thing, and it's born out of, I think, too many years of decadence. And I think the people who grew up or came into political understanding under the golden age in their eyes of Obama, I think that they're the ones who are sort of trying to recreate something like that again and again and again. I think it goes back further than that, but I think that was supercharged, whatever,
sure.
Just my opinion.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. And it was full of people who believed that in capital H history, and they believe the kind of bullshit, like, the arc of justice is long, but it bends toward, or the arc of whatever bends towards fairness, right, or justice, whatever.
Justice, yeah.
Yeah. And they really believed that there was no going back, which is one reason why they were utterly traumatized in 2016 when Trump won, because this was not supposed to happen. This was not part of the script.
Now, does it also ring to you as very, and well, I'm not going to preface. Does it also ring to you as very childlike, that outlook on 2016? I mean, I don't mean that. I'm not saying that to be like they're children, haha. I mean, literally, that is a childlike interpretation of history. Sure. And again, let me reiterate to the audience or whoever's watching, I don't mean that as an insult. I mean it very much literally.
But I mean, it's childlike, but it's also, I mean, it's also, at the end of the day, it's also human, because we want to believe that things lead to something. There's a, everybody gets pissed off at David Chase because he left the end of The Sopranos in a kind of black, just a sudden cut to black.
I remember that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And you don't know exactly what happened. I mean, like, yeah, of course you know, but you don't know because they didn't tell you. And it speaks to a very human need to have things resolved, to have an end. And that's why, things that we just have this need for things to end, as kind of humans. We have an expectation thing, which is built into us. And I mean, what is, we've got two big impulses that over the course of the last, 1,000 years or more have been prime impulses for humanity. One has been the desire to, the desire to, end in a happy, utopian, beautiful way. To have an arc of whatever conflict that ends up, reaching a kind of, wonderful fulfillment thing where everyone is happy. We need that in order to keep going. And the other thing is the idea of the perfectibility of man. We constantly want to play with the idea that, really since Rousseau, the idea that man has no, fixed human nature, and that we can implement all of these really smart tweaks that would, at the end of the day, change the nature of the, of the machine that we're talking about, which is, the human being and the mind of the human being. And yeah, totally. I mean, it's totally childlike. It's one of those things where if you kind of grow up with the awareness that, like, if you grow up seeing that that's what the left believes at base, and I mean, Swole has a great book on it, which is the Conflict of Visions, which is like probably his essential book, where he talks about it, like the two different types, the human nature folks and the folks who believe in the perfectibility of man. And so these are impulses that are not that are not going away quickly, because they seem to be very human, unfortunately. I mean, this is what, like, I think this is one of the kind of life, this is the struggle that we're gonna have to deal with forever.
Way more eloquently put than I had left it, and it's a good clarification, because any time that you can, like, sort of leave yourself perplexed by another group or something like that, then I think you're missing the point. And that you really put a face to what's going on there. I almost forgot to we can go over this quickly, or we can get as deep into it as we want to, but I want to together meet the leader of the Swole left.
Oh, little guy.
Little guy. The leader of the Swole left. So he's 6'2". He's 217 pounds of hulking muscle. Pancho Martinez, made for an imposing serf dressed like a literal peasant. peasant leather arm bracers over a baggy cotton worker's shirt for last October's medieval festival in Manhattan. So he's a LARPer. Nothing wrong LARPing, but kind of. He'd spent the last year powerlifting, adding more than 20 pounds of muscle and transforming his frame from doughy to swole, a daunting physical presence that proved useful in the altercation he's about to witness. Now, here's where we get that story that we all know just isn't true. And
right.
Yeah. So here's the story. As Martinez and his girlfriend stepped onto the downtown A train, they noticed a, quote, big, burly man screaming homophobic invective at a tiny, skinny gay kid.
Yeah, I'm sure that happened.
That hasn't happened since the 80s, okay?
Right.
Don't look at me or I'll fuck you up, the guy yelled at the teenager. Without speaking, Martinez... And the way that they paint this story, they couldn't have made themselves come off like more righteous heroes. Like the girl, she ran off and she grabbed the boy and talked to him like they were longtime friends. Like, she's perfect. He's Superman. Right. Just I mean, this is where this this is obviously a funny. It's not meant to be funny. This is a serious article. But this is a funny.
No, that whole article is funny and it's supposed to be serious. I mean, I just got a kick out of it, and I got a kick. Apparently, it was a thing. I mean, I spoke to someone who was actually someone who was a freelance writer on some of these issues, who was asked to write that, who was pitched this story, and he was just like, "Yeah, no, this is silly." Look, I mean, come the fuck on,
I mean, it's funny is that the article calls him, he went from doughy to being a burly man. Still looks doughy to me. I'm sorry. I mean, look, he looks better, obviously. I'm not going to rag on, people. It takes time.
Yeah, look. I mean, the dude looks better, but it's it's obvious that I mean, okay, so he ate a little more.
Okay, he lifted. Look, I'm not trying to say to anybody.
Yeah, right. I mean, we don't want to.
He looks good, but what I'm saying, he still gives off pussy. Like,
of course, of course,
Yeah.
But and it's like, look, I don't know. I mean, I have a kind of. I don't think I'm good enough to put myself forward as like, some kind of whatever fitness icon. Like, I know what I do, what I do seems to work for me. I'm always tweaking. I'm never satisfied, blah, 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 blah. I put the work in, yada, yada, yada. Let's just say in Hungarian, we have an expression like of extreme embarrassment. And it's like, my face burns off in embarrassment. And like, if I would be the feature of this story, I would my face would burn off in embarrassment.
I like that. I like the,
yeah. I mean, but I mean, on the other hand, I don't know. I mean, they did, the Hungarian lefties did a nasty hit piece on me that included, photos from photos from like Twitter or whatever. And they were, like me in the gym, and they were like, oh, look how embarrassing he is. And I thought the photos were pretty good. So like, I mean, but like, I'm not some kind of a, I would never do this. I don't know. My biggest problem with this shit is, and obviously I have no problem with anybody who starts lifting and whatever. I think it's great. I think it's wonderful and essential and all these things. But like, don't approach this shit with with politics first and then the thing, because it's just a thing. It's a thing you like to do and you should do. The politics, if you want to think about the politics and how it relates to to powerlifting or bodybuilding or whatever, like whatever physical thing you do, that comes later. If you're coming into it with a preconceived political agenda, your stuff is going to be shit, which is exactly what we see there. Your stuff is going to be shit. And it's the same thing with art too. It's like, hey, I don't really care about art that much, but I'm a political artist.
Art.
I'm going to make right-wing art. What kind of art should I make? Okay. Go home. You're done. You don't even start. Like, come back when when you have decided that you have a real love of the thing for itself. And then you can say, you know what, I'm going to put another screen or whatever, another extra layer on top once I've, attained some proficiency or whatever. But like, don't give me this nonsense about, I mean, the whole thing was political. I mean, if he was just a dude who was getting, if this story had no political element whatsoever, we would never see this article. He wouldn't be, famous. This
precisely
thing would never happen.
Why it was written. I mean,
right. And
wow,
it's like,
look at the anomaly. I'm on the left and I lift. It's very
because look, I mean, everybody knows it's not. I mean, even they know, they're fucking admitting it. When they write this story, they know that they've got a reputation for being, for being, soft and small and weak and let's say not particularly interested in the physical.
I mean, they even wrote an article about how bodybuilding leads to right-wing extremism.
Right.
Point.
Yeah, but you know what? It kind of does. I mean, what
do you mean by that?
Let's be honest. I mean, at the end of the day, I guess people who are like in the I mean, the first time I went to a bodybuilding show, and they started the show, and they had the Pledge of Allegiance, and I was like, nobody does this anymore. And then they sang the Star Spangled Banner, and you know what? Everybody got up, everybody sang.
Wow.
And it was like, and then I noticed that it happened every time. And during the election, I've seen, the folks I follow on Instagram. I mean, there is, it's a right-wing activity. It's a right-wing sport. And, the question is why? Partly it has to do with the fact that partly it has to do with the fact that, at the end of the day, there's no fucking excuses. I mean, you could be like, yeah, okay. I mean, there are excuses like, okay, like I whatever, I tore something, I injured myself, I did whatever from, or you have whatever, some kind of, bad things happen to you, in the course of your training. That's like human and normal and fun and whatever. But like at the end of the day, if you want progress, if you want to go from A to B, you have to show up, you have to do the work and do it with consistency. You can't pay somebody to do it for you. You just have to suck it up and do it. And, I mean, when I lived in DC, and then also in Alexandria in Northern Virginia, I would go to the gym and I would see trainers with the same clients over the course of a year or 2 years, like 3 times a week. I'd go and I'd see the same thing, the same blah, 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 blah. And their clients looked exactly the same the first day to the last day.
Really?
It's the same. And I wanted to go up to them and say, like, are you getting your money's worth? Like, what is this here? And I ended up, getting to know a trainer, somewhere else. And I asked her about this phenomenon. And she was like, yeah, some people just don't care. They just show up. They hire me as a listener. Right.
Oh, geez.
And I was like, okay. I mean, it's like, I guess it's cheaper than a therapist. Right. So, or it's some,
is it?
Yeah. I mean, it's something to do every a couple times a week to go and like see and talk to another human being. It's like, okay. But
sad, okay.
But it's sad, but it's okay. But it's like, dude, if you're there to change how you look, how you feel, what you're able to do, how you feel about yourself. I mean, shit, how do you feel about yourself if after a year you still look the same, you're lifting the same weight, you're still like doing the same exercises, and nothing has changed after a year? I mean, you feel probably worse than you did before. A
lot of wasted time.
If you really think about it, because you're wasting time and you're putting you're putting in the hours, but you're not putting in anything else. And it pissed me off. I actually, I'm more pissed off about those trainers than I am about the people, because, sometimes, like, if you're new to this, or you're like, middle-aged or older or whatever, like, you don't know what, like, you're not necessarily motivated to be like, okay, I want to get on stage next year or something like that. Like, get me in shape. Right. You're just like, okay, I'm depending on someone who is a trainer to, basically to guide me in this thing. And the trainer is not guiding them. And that pisses me off. Yeah. And, I mean, one of the cool things is when you go and you find yourself a good gym, a good legit gym, you don't see that. And that's one of the things that I think more people should do, is like, somewhere in your town, I don't care where you live.
Why do you think that is? Why is a good gym, why don't you see that? Is it because of selection? Is it that people who will weed themselves out, or is it because people will rise to a better gym by what's around them?
Yeah, I think that's yeah, I mean, yeah, it's probably that. It's probably that. Wherever you live, whatever town you're in, you will have like 6 LA Fitnesses, and maybe you'll have Crunch or Planet Fitness or whatever, but you will have at least one legit gym, which is a little bit intimidating if you go in if you're not in shape. Yeah, and you walk in and you're just like, oh fuck, I am like, the smallest and weakest dude here. And you know what? You want to go to that gym because you want, you want to be, you want to be pushed. You want to be reminded every day that, like, yeah, there's more that I could be doing, in different ways. Now, on the other hand, you can't like obsess about it. You can't let it get you down, and kind of be surrounded by folks who are just like, like whatever, you'll never look like that in your wildest dreams. But like, there's a happy medium there. I mean, I don't know. Have you ever gone to Gold's in Venice Beach?
Never been to Venice Beach, but that is very much on my list.
So you should definitely do it. And I'm telling you, what's going to be the biggest shock of your life? When you walk in and you're like, like one of the 3 or 4 biggest dudes there.
Oh, I did not expect you to say that.
Yep.
Okay, so what's going on there?
What's going on there is tourism. They charge $40 to work out.
Business wise, that's very smart, I guess. But
yeah, it's very
bodybuilder,
because people want, people want to work out there, and it's my suspicion. I don't know this for sure. I should ask, actually. It's my suspicion that they basically give pros or people who look really good free. What do you call it? Like just come and make the place look like Gold's Gym, in what do you call it, in Venice Beach.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I walked in, I was like, what the hell is going on here?
Well, you're crazy. I think that you would have been one of the biggest guys there anyway. Like without.
Well, no, but I mean, they're always look. I mean, they're always whatever dudes twice my size. But I thought I would be walking in and I thought I would be the smallest dude in the gym. And
so that's what I would have assumed,
because that's the mystique, right? Like that's the mystique. Yeah. Like, for example, I've been in gyms in like outside of DC where I am the smallest person in the gym, and and it looks a lot more hardcore and badass than Gold's in Venice Beach. But like whatever, you never know. Anyway, I would find every town has a place like that where you can go. And at the end of the day, I think the people who go to those gyms are so much friendlier.
That's what Ryan said in chat. He goes, usually the guys at the gyms are a lot nicer and more helpful to the smaller guys as well. I found the same thing, actually. I found the same thing to be true.
You know why? It's because if you're there, they know you're there to work, because you could have been at LA Fitness, you could have been at Planet Fitness or whatever, but you sought this place out. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Like, you've already, you've kind of crossed the threshold and like, okay, you're ready for this. And, you know, I mean, I belong to 3 gyms here. I guess 4, but you know, 2 of them are the same, the same company. And, you know, and I just like to do like gym tourism. So I'll go like one day I'll go, you know, do chest in one place. Another day I'll go do legs in another place and blah, blah, blah.
I would do the same thing if I had the option of doing that. I belong to 2, but I have to cancel the one. There's I know you're from New Jersey. Do you remember? Maybe it was Jersey Shore, Jersey Fitness Shop, I think it's called, in Bradley Beach.
I've never been to the Jersey Shore, if you can imagine that.
I guess you're more of a New York, New Jersey guy.
Yeah, I grew up in Morris County, in northern Jersey. And I went to, I mean, I've been a couple times in, you know, whatever, in Trenton. But, and of course, like by Rutgers. But like basically Rutgers is like the furthest south that I ever went.
Really?
And spent time. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
I'll be honest with you, Dave. I think you'd love the Jersey Shore. I think you'd have a fun time. I think so. I mean, there's something. Ryan, you're in chat. Tell him about. You don't have to get into it, but Ryan.
Well, I've been to AC. A couple
AC times. Is not what I'm talking about.
Right.
AC is AC, and I would say AC is more related to Philly, and then you have like New York, and that area where you're from that's New York. This is like the New Jersey that's like not defined by either. It's very well taken care of towns. People with money live, you know, close to the beach here. The towns, you know, there's some money in that area, really good money, great food. The boardwalks are bustling. The towns are beautiful. The surrounding towns are rural and not rural, but they're really cute. So like
suburbs. What towns?
I would say up front, like Point Pleasant's really great. Manahawkin, anywhere from Asbury down to like Manasquan area.
Okay.
And if these beaches mean nothing to you, or these towns mean nothing to you,
yeah, no. I mean, I've known people from all of these places, and I've seen them all on maps. But like I never. We went. My family when the other kids went to the shore, we just came to Miami Beach.
Yeah,
like that's just what we did because my grandparents were here.
I have I really think you dig it, especially Asbury Park, because there's a bit of an there's a bit of aesthetic there that's been preserved, and it's a 1920s aesthetic that they actually preserved it, and it has a really interesting character there, and there's a convention center right on the water that has all kinds of things. And you walk into this place, it's a 1920s convention center. I mean, it's preserved.
So this is the one that appears in movies.
It might be. Yeah. It might be.
Yeah. Like the
I'm moving actually right there.
Oh, really? Oh, no shit. Like on the beach?
Right there. Yeah.
Oh, excellent. Awesome.
In October. Yeah. But I think, you know, it's not something
you move to Florida.
Rush to.
What are you wasting your time?
We'll see. That's not in the cards. We actually have a place north of Tampa down there that, you know, might translate into us all going down there. And I like to be close to my family. I don't know if that's always going to be that way, where it's necessary to constantly be around them. But for now, I'm very tight with them. Yeah. So I'm stuck here in New Jersey, but we're split up right now. They're down in Florida taking care of my aunt. So you never know. I mean, things might change, and Florida's great, but yeah.
I'm planning to actually get in the car at some point before the summer ends, and I think maybe I'm going to get a new laptop before that, and drive around the west coast of Florida with the intention of kind of exploring it to maybe move.
The West Coast. That's where our house is. Ryan, by the way, he's the guy who's going to help you with the find a
the dog.
Rescue.
Yeah.
And he just moved up here from Fort Lauderdale, and he lived right out overlooking the Everglades. Everglades, is that the right word? Everglades, not Everglades. What am I talking about? the swamplands of Florida.
Oh yeah, the Everglades.
The Everglades, and he was up high, right? So he would when storms would roll in, he'd get a really great view of. Anyway, he moved up there to Massachusetts, and so he just left that area.
Oh shit!
And then he's going to be moving to Jersey pretty soon too. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there are many jerseys, as you know.
There are many jerseys.
There are many jerseys, as you know. I mean, I grew up in a great idyllic place, on a ton of land and in the woods and I mean,
that's me too. Yeah. And that was what grounded me. I'm convinced that grounded me into like reality, like the streams and woods and rivers.
Right. I mean, I would wake up, have breakfast and look out the window and it's just like 12 deer are just hanging out. And, it's like, okay, we had a corral for horses. We didn't have any horses, but we had like, the previous owner had horses. It was just like, okay, like horses are here. Okay. And which is not the image you get of Jersey.
No, not at all. Nobody expects it. Ryan was telling, he's like, he was so shocked to find out, he says in the comments, that not all of Jersey is 95.
Right. So. Yeah. No. I mean, it was an amazing place to grow up, actually. And though, to tell you the truth, like, by the time I went off to college, I mean, I was done. I was like, okay, I'm just, I'm ready to go to the big city.
I still have it. I still have in the back of my head the idea that I'd like to either travel and stay long-term places, or eventually move other places. But that's to be decided.
Yeah, I would. I would go and I would find the place that is most unlike Jersey in every way.
Mm-hmm. And what would you say? What would you say that is? Though? What comes to mind? Would you say that is?
I don't know. I mean, for me, it was going into a kind of hyper urban environment that I always wanted. That was a different time. That was like the 90s, and it's just a totally different time. You go to New York now and it's not the way it was. And you go to any of the big cities and it's just different. I mean, the biggest thing I think is to be surrounded by people who don't, really hate you before they even know you, which is like the political thing. Like you should be surrounded by people who, whatever, you share the same, you share some of the same, sensibilities. It's not a good feeling over the course of a long term, I think, to be surrounded. You're talking about
life in the cities?
Or really anywhere, whatever, like the suburbs. I mean, my buddy who still lives in Jersey, he's surrounded by lunatics, who like, I mean, just
we've got plenty.
Right, complete leftist lunatics, and I mean, I used to live in San Francisco. I'd be surrounded by it. It was like a fucking Hamas. It was like a Hamas parade every day. I mean, it was insane. And
for a guy like you, that was probably antagonistic.
Yeah, I was. That's why I left. I was just like, I can't take this anymore. And I lived in DC. Like, of course, you're in DC. You're surrounded by people who are like literally enemies.
I couldn't live in DC for that exact reason. I could. I may even have to, but I feel like I couldn't.
No, dude, you're sitting there. You're like at Starbucks or something, and you're surrounded by people who like. No, how about this? I went to a gym there, and remember when the I mean, I hated this gym. The gym was like a nightclub. It was like cheesy and horrible. But it was
the name? Because I may know. I've heard horror stories of a certain gym in DC. What was the name?
What was it called? I don't know.
Like a V or something, like a Viva. Or
Vita.
That's the one.
Yeah. Well, okay. So there are like a couple Vitas.
Yeah.
There's a Vita that was one block from me. Which was on like I forget what the fuck the street it was on. Whatever it was.
Black Lives Matter Boulevard.
Yeah. Yeah. It was.
Was it really?
No, it was right next to. It was right next to Busboys and Poets, which was a big like BLM nonsense and a big communist place. Yeah, jeez. But anyway, and I'm sitting there. I'm working out there. I really didn't like it. You know, it was not for me, but it was a block away. I mean, it was a block away. They close at midnight. You're like, okay, fine. And, you know, decent towels, whatever. And, you know, during the Elizabeth Warren thing where she made her like big thing, and it was like, you know, I mean, there were a bunch of dudes who were you know, lefty bloggers who just showed up like looking like that guy, like the guy from the thing in picture one in the before photo, you know, and he like wearing these shirts that are like, you know, nevertheless she persisted. And, you know, and just people like, I mean, obviously like lefty blogger types. And it's like, okay, hey, I'm glad that you're you know, here at the gym, whatever, but you're like doing like, you know, silly body weight exercises, like, you know, just, you know, get out of my way. And it was, you know, I felt bad being surrounded by those people. So I come to Florida, and one gym that I go to in particular, the owner is based as hell. You know, if I go on OAN the next day, he's like, man, great job on OAN, you know, or Newsmax or whatever. Like he's, you know, the guys in there are all fucking squared away. And, you know, and the women too. And it's just a good feeling not being surrounded by a bunch of crazy libs. It's great.
It is.
You know, it's great. It's like, you know, I mean, I get,
David, a part of why I said you would like the Jersey Shore is there are MAGA flags around. You go north, that's when you get lib city, and then if you go, well, not south, actually, even south, you know, probably not probably not AC, but everything surrounding AC, that's all Pine Barrens, and that's all backwoods stuff, and that's all right wing. But Monmouth County, where I'm from, that's where Chris Smith is from, and even though he's, you know, a traitorous douchebag now, Chris Smith, that's his district, and that's his district for a reason. That's where I'm from, and
my sister went to Monmouth
because of Italians.
I've been there a couple times. Yeah, because of Italians.
Yeah, and so I guess part of why I feel so good here is because I have the Italian thing going, and I have the right wing thing going, and it's very comfortable. And I agree. I go to the gym around by me, and it's owned by a guy younger than me, actually. Wow. And they're just, you know, they're completely, you know, they're actually, actually take pictures. The flag with the blue line through it is everywhere, all over the place. And it's full of douchebag Italians like me, and I love it. It's like, you know, so it's great, and I'm glad that I'm not the biggest guy there too. They got a lot of bodybuilders that are starting to go to my gym. But your point is taken, and that was how I felt down in Florida. Again, we had a little place down in north of Tampa on the West Coast, and I found this. I was looking for gym, and I'm like trying all these gyms. Suddenly on Google, I missed one, and I looked at this one gym, and it's this. You've probably seen the pictures of me there where I probably looked my best with like the best lighting, where I was just the most ripped up. That was at that gym I found in Florida, and that was run by bodybuilders, like legit bodybuilders. And you could, you know, and these people were like based, like you said, like they were completely just, you know, MMA, right wing, you know, all that stuff. And this place was grungy, but awesome grungy. Yeah. The atmosphere was amazing. Everybody, that was the first gym I've ever been to where there were female bodybuilders. I'm not talking about the booty girls on Instagram who go to the gym and do like the glute exercises. I'm talking like ripped out of their minds. They looked at me like I was like a, you know, like I looked like I was breakfast or something. They look at me yeah, but it was cool. That was like one of the coolest gym experiences of my life, and that really shaped what I look for at gyms here in Jersey. And finally a place opened up that has a similar vibe, and I'm very happy.
Great. That's great. Look, I mean, here's the truth. I'm going to tell you the truth. The truth is that had this gym in DC where I go now, when I visit DC, it's a DMV DMV gym in Alexandria. Had this gym been open at the time where I lived here, it opened right after I left. There's a chance I would have stayed.
This is in DC that opened up?
Yep. Or outside of DC. I mean, in Alexandria, Virginia. I mean, there are people who drive out there from DC or wherever, but there's no reason to, because if you're gonna be serious and you're gonna go there, you may as well want to. And you know what? It was like 10 minutes from my house.
Oh, well, that's there.
And it didn't exist. And now it's just like I walk in there, I'm like, this is paradise. The equipment is great. The people are awesome. I always end up showing up, and I'm like, hey, can I pay for a day? Because usually when I go, it's like, I go right as, I go to the gym, and then I go from there to the airport, to come back home, because I do these quick trips sometimes. And nobody ever takes my money.
Oh,
nobody
wow.
has ever taken my money. They're just like, oh, you're from Miami?
That's great. Yeah. That's great.
And, so I end up just waiting there for like, forever, just hanging out and talking to people, as I wait for my Ubers to come to take me to the airport. And everyone is great, and whereas the other experience that I had, I went to a former Gold's, which was like, whatever, it was okay, but it was bland. I didn't meet one person after working out there for like a year and a half. I just like, whatever, it's just not like nobody serious was in there. And, the people who were like halfway serious were like obvious douchebags who were like high school kids.
Oh, okay.
And it's like, whatever. But
if I end up moving down to DC, which is not the most improbable thing, my company's based there.
Well, this is your gym.
That's my gym. That's great. I mean, socially, I don't know how I'd survive in DC. I'd probably find my tribe, but yeah, I don't talk to people anyway. What am I talking about? I'd be fine. I just need a good gym.
I mean, it's a little better. It's a little better. Actually, I don't know. I mean, so many of my friends left. I still have a bunch of folks who were there who I go to see. And that's the only reason. I mean, the last time I went, I actually think I saw Ryan the last time I went, because we were both at the same event. It was a Claremont thing. And I didn't even go into the city. I was just in Virginia for like 3 days.
Oh, nice.
And I just managed to see, everybody out in Virginia, because that's where everybody lives anyway.
That's great. Actually, I just realized I do have a handful of friends in DC that are based, and one of them is actually in the chat, and I completely forgot. And he's probably pissed off at me, but this has been it's been a really great conversation.
Man, thank you.
2 hours.
2 hours.
We've been at 2 hours. That's how great of a conversation this was.
Yeah, I didn't even. I didn't even notice. I saw my phone was like ping, ping, ping. But I didn't notice the time go by, and I'm sorry that I just whatever, maybe I talked your head off, but I had a great time.
Me too. I absolutely did, and I hope that when you do your your podcasts for, I'm getting bad looks in GIF form for the DC thing, but I hope that when you this because I know you might want to talk about fitness stuff or whatever, going with your Substack, which again is late Republic nonsense. That hopefully you get an idea of maybe how you can maybe structure that kind of conversation, because this has been great, and gyms and stuff like this is.
Yeah, thank you. I don't know. I mean, I'm just trying to figure out what I mean, like my own fitness, whatever, sounds cheesy to say, but like my own fitness journey. I mean, for the last several months has been kind of in many ways derailed due to like injuries and stuff.
Those are universals, and those are conversations that people are dying to have. How you get through them and motivation.
Look, I mean, I've been in really dark places. I mean, I'll admit I've been in really dark places during this whole process, and like, not knowing what, feeling that like something is, wrong internally, and like not knowing what it is, and doing, whatever, $5,000 worth of blood work. Over the course of several months to like, hey, my blood looks, my blood work looks fine, but I'm still not, something is wrong, blah, blah, blah. Of course, like whatever Jewish hypochondriac maniac is like, okay, I have cancer, and God forbid, or like, something else, who knows, whatever. And, but I've been working with a guy who's really, really great, who is a coach, and he's a sort of, semi-autistic. I mean, he's not autistic, but he's like, he has that instinct where he's like, I need to know everything about this. Mm-hmm. And whereas I kind of don't have it in this particular respect. Yeah. Like I'll know what I know and blah, blah, blah. And I'll pick up some stuff over the course, but he's just like, okay, I'm going to read the fucking, the medical journals and all this stuff. And then I had an issue with the dosage of thyroid medication because I didn't know that, I've got hereditary, bullshit Ashkenazi thyroid issues in addition to gluten, in addition to Hashimoto's disease, which is not a gluten allergy or dairy allergy, but it's, sensitivity to gluten and dairy and things like that. So like, this last couple of months, it's like, holy shit, man. And also, you turn 44 and I felt like I was 25 until I turned like 40, until I turned 44.
Wow.
And it just hit me like a ton of bricks. It's like all of a sudden, and I tore when I turned 40, or the year I was 40, I tore my right bicep tendon, and I needed surgery to reattach it.
And you're telling me even that wasn't as bad as.
And no, I went to the doctor. I went to the surgeon, who was going to do the surgery, and I was like, Doc, what happened? And he's like, you're 40. Like, look what you're fucking, you go to the gym like a maniac and you're 40. Like, what do you think's going to happen? So it's like, oh man. And it made me like, the big regret that I have is just not getting serious about this until now. I mean, I just, you're so lucky. You're young. You can, you've got plenty of time ahead of you to do this. I feel like my window to be really serious and, passionate and effective in this space is narrowing, because like I go to the bodybuilding shows. I see what, I see how it works. I see, I'm like, there's masters, like whatever, over 35 already, you're masters. Okay. So there's over 35, there's over, 40, over 45, over 55, blah, 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 depending on, who's, how many people are in the show or whatever. But it's like, you see the guys who are like 50 and they look good, but like, they don't look like the guys who are 40. And as it goes further and further by 5-year increments, it's like, I mean, I don't want to disparage them in any way because they're fucking doing it. Like you're 60 years old, you're getting on stage, you're 55, you're getting on stage. That's amazing. It's really inspirational and you look like a badass. Yes. But like, you can't help but notice that there is a deterioration. And, I turned 45 this year, so I don't have that much time left to go and do this. At some point it's like, taking its toll and, not even taking its toll physically on you, depending on like the types of, whatever types of things you're doing and working out hard, but like just time, just age takes that toll on you, where things that, your recovery is slower and blah, 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 and this and that. And, and, something I did want to touch on is the fact that I think if you're going to be doing this in any sort of serious or semi-serious way, you need to get your blood work done, especially if you're like in your 30s, in your 40s, get your blood work done. See what you're dealing with. You may have shit going on. You may have like a vitamin D deficiency that is like easy as shit to solve.
Fixable. Right.
Totally fixable. that it's just like, man, where are my gains? I'm working so hard, blah, blah, blah. Where are my gains?
That's great.
Dude,
that's great advice. Anybody who's listening.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, what the hell? Your insurance will cover it. It's not like you're going to need, many, blood tests and all kinds of expensive blah, blah, blah. Just get it. Get a hormonal panel done. You probably, if you're 35 or older, you should think about very seriously. You should think about getting on, some type of hormone replacement regime. Whether that means like TRT or something else. And there's a wide range of what that means and where you can get that kind of thing. But like, that's been so huge and life changing for me. It's just like, T is like the life force. It's a joke, when we mock the people with low T. It's fucking true. Mm-hmm. And it's really, really significant in terms of, not just in the gym, but in your life and your ability to persevere, your mental health, all of these things all of these things that are affected by testosterone. It's a miracle. It's not really a miracle drug, but it's a miracle compound that is essential to your life force. And if you're not, if you're getting older and you're not having that checked or dealt with, then you're really missing out. You're missing out not only on the gains, you're missing out in every area of your life. Mm-hmm. So I would encourage you to do that.
Yeah, that's, and everybody who's listening, definitely there's some really very, very sage advice. And I think everybody should heed that, warning and definitely get checked up on, no matter what, because these are what anybody who's serious about taking care of themselves would do these things.
You see people who are in, this is the ridiculous part. Like, the other thing too, like, HGH, 90% of Hollywood is taking it. It's not killing people. Testosterone, 90% of Hollywood is taking it, if not 100%. It's not killing anybody.
I believe all that. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, how do you look, do you look 10, 15 years younger? Totally. Who doesn't want that? For example, I take, a moderate dose of HGH, twice a day, the way you're supposed to broken up. And it helps me with injuries unbelievably. And it helps me with recovery. With the injuries, it's so pronounced that I stopped taking it last year for a month. I was like, yeah, it's expensive. I'm not gonna take it for a month. And that's when I tore my pec, because I had grown accustomed to working out in a certain type of way with a certain type of intensity. And when I didn't have that, and I didn't have when I didn't give my cells the ability to repair themselves that way, then I just kind of overshot the mark. Mm-hmm. And once you get used to a certain type of of training, to go and dial it back is actually quite hard, and it takes a lot of mindfulness. Mm-hmm. And that's another thing that you guys can talk about, or actually doing a Substack thing on that is probably not a bad idea, which is like, how do you go, do you guys have deload weeks?
We're working on that. That's in the works right now. We've not.
Because so I've got a because of the pec fascia tear last year, I've had every fucking horrible thing you can imagine on my left side bouncing around. So like, I had scapula, I had rotator cuff, I had this, I had that. I have now I have this pec tendon which is, kind of where my front delt is giving me a whole lot of pain.
Yeah, I've had that too.
Yeah, only when I do certain movements. So like if I bench, I have to figure out an angle where it's okay and I can do it. The same thing with shoulder presses. Like sometimes, whatever, you go this way and it's terrible pain, but you go this way and it's just fine.
I have to stick to incline in my case. I can't do flat bench. I can do flat bench, but I have to be very careful.
Right.
Flat bench activates that exact spot right here.
Yep. Yeah. And you can't screw around with that, because God forbid, I mean, you see those videos, oof, where that tear happens, and it's just like, I mean, you're out, you need surgery, and you're just never going to be the same.
Those injuries destroy your progress, and just taking a couple of weeks to recover or to maybe even a month to just bounce back is better than having to take off 3, 4, 5, 6 months for an injury. So
right. Yeah. I mean, and it's, but like today, I mean, yesterday I went to the doctor, I got a shot of cortisone right to the thing. And I feel better. And it's funny how everything is connected, right? So I have terrible elbow tendon pain. And it's like, okay, this pain is gone, so then this pain is also gone.
Wow.
But I went to, and I go to the gym this afternoon, and of course, what do I do is I have a push day, and like an idiot, but I kept the weight relatively low, and I did high reps, and I was like, okay, got a decent pump. It's fine. It's not forever. Better to do it this way for a while and just to coast than to push yourself. And is exactly what you said. You set yourself up for 6 months. You're out of out of commission. And with tendons, it's not gonna. I mean, unless you get no exercise whatsoever, and then you're doing something utterly stupid. That's when it'll just happen like that. But if you spend any time working out, you will feel something before it tears. Yeah. Not for one day either. You'll feel something for 4 months before it tears, God forbid. Yeah. So that's alarm bells telling you. And if you've got tendon pain, and I should say this because, sort of a parting thing, the magic thing that helps take care of that is Bromealiain. And it's something that a lot of people don't know about. It boggles my mind how people don't know about this. But you can get Bromealiain in any CVS or Walgreens or whatever, just in the vitamin section, and it repairs tendons, and it cuts down on inflammation. Bromealiain.
Okay.
But I go and I get the super high potency on Amazon, and it's $12 or whatever, and it does the job. I believe in taking more vitamins than necessary, just because you can, if it says take 4, I take 5, because whatever, I'm probably a little more than average weight.
Right. Okay. And that makes sense. Now, just so you know, in parting, for all of the agonizing over and it's legitimate agonizing over sort of dealing with age and how that affects bodybuilding. You are a specimen to 99.9% of the people out there. And it's, you inspired me personally in a lot of ways to, take my lifting to another level. Whether it was successful, I don't know. But
of course, man, you look great.
Well, right now I am not at my best, but it's
either am I. It happens. You literally can't. And this is another lesson to learn that I learned this year. You can't always look your best.
Exactly. I know I'm going to achieve big things because I work my ass off and I'm consistent, which is, really all you can do other than the things that you're talking about, which is great. I'm overdue for blood work, so that's going to be on my list of things to take care of. And there are things that everybody can do to improve on where they are. But David, thank you so much for coming. This is our first thing of this. I don't know how many of these we're going to do, if we ever, how many we're ever going to do, but this has been a great start to the podcast. And everybody, Late Republic Nonsense is Dave's Substack. You probably follow him on Twitch. If you don't, it's right there next to his name. It's Dave Reaboi, Reaboi, which I had for the longest time said Reaboi, and I went on.
That's fine. That one is open too.
Okay.
Yeah, that one's open. We have half the family that says Reaboi. We have another half the family that says Reaboi. Okay. So in my life, actually, I've alternated. I've gone through different periods where it's one or the other. Because it's bad for branding, but what I should really do is just stick with one, right? It's hard to do.
Yeah, it's hard to do. I think whatever you're doing is working. And again, thanks for coming on, Dave.
It's my pleasure. I have so much respect for what you're doing and your ability and articulateness and you're a sharp guy, and it's just it's great. It's given me a lot of pleasure to see like the last couple of years to see how you're developing stuff. It's great.
Thanks. Thank you for that. And you've definitely been a big boost in that. So thank you again for everything you do behind the scenes and by coming on and talking to us. Thanks again, Dave.
My pleasure. Thank you. And thanks for having me.
Thanks.